All right, we're going to talk about one of the most common questions that I get, which is what do I do and how do I set things up if I have multiple countries that I'm targeting? So, for a lot of people out there, they sell goods or products that are able to be exported or sold in a variety of locations, possibly internationally, possibly across the world. So, this is my example and kind of just the philosophy that I use to approach this. The end state is ideally looking like this. The end state is that your entire ad account is all targeting all locations. But the big thing is we can't rush to the end. Every single country that you see on my screen right here has been tested one by one. So there's two approaches to this. There are way too many different ways that we could chop and change this. So instead of showing you in an ad account, I'm just going to give you the philosophy around it. And I think this should clear up probably like 90% of the questions I get around this because it's an important thing, right? You could sell a product to so many different places. How do you approach it? So let's just get into it. I'm going to just pop over onto my Miro board here and give you all a breakdown. So when you are first starting out and you don't know which countries do well, the very first thing you're going to do, one, is you're going to target all countries. So we're going to get a little thinner marker in here. We're going to target all countries at first. So right off the bat, literally set so that you could target all the available countries that you feel comfortable selling in. Now, what that doesn't mean is you should not be including any country that, doesn't speak the native language that you're advertising in. So, a great example of this would be if I was in the United States and I could easily ship without any duties, tariffs, or any issues to the US and Canada, then I would include the US and Canada because generally speaking, most of the population in Canada speaks English as well. What I would maybe avoid, and actually pretty obviously avoid, is adding just a country that doesn't speak English too prominently, like China. So most of, the APAC locations are not speaking predominantly English. They're mostly receiving their advertising in their native languages. Why would I target and why would I craft creative for a market that my product is not necessarily supposed to be in? So that's number one. Now, once you group all of these together in your appropriate available countries, the next thing you need to do is analyze. So if we pop back into our ads manager here, let's pretend this was your example. This is obviously a boatload of data. The things you want to really look out for here are percentages of spend and return on ad spends. Very straightforward. Now, if you have a different goal, aim to your specific goal. As you could look here very quickly in this campaign that I'm presenting on screen, it spent $115,000. The average cost per purchase is $42. So, generally speaking, here we have almost every single cost per purchase in line, right? There's a few, like such as Spain here and the United Kingdom, that are about $10 higher. These have fluctuated a little bit, so it's okay. But nothing's like totally out of whack. Nothing's getting like $70 cost per purchases. So in this case, we are comfortable keeping these together. However, if you see something totally out of whack, let's pretend the United Kingdom here was at a cost per purchase of, let's say, $85, right? We'd have to eliminate that from here pretty obviously. And the way that we'd eliminate that from here is by, on the ad set level, removing that specific country. Now, if you have the hunch that you want to, you're already doing this, then it's easy to just eliminate. So you go down the path of elimination, right? That's pretty straightforward. The second thing that happens a lot is a lot of people are only targeting a certain location. So let's say you're targeting only the US right now, but you want to test new country targets because you maybe opened up shipping, you've maybe just haven't thought about testing before, and now you actually want to try it. How I'd recommend approaching this is a little bit different. So instead of just adding countries to your existing campaign, what you're going to do, we're going to go all the way back to here. What you're going to do is in your prospecting CBO campaign, we're going to create a fresh pack similar to the way that we test an interest audience. So similar to the way that we test an interest audience, we're going to create a brand new pack and we're going to target the country within that pack. The ideal scenario, this doesn't happen all the time, and you can probably tell by now, there's a lot of if ands, if ands, if ands. So the ideal scenario is that this pack here gets a little bit of spend. You're able to test properly against it. If it doesn't get proper spend, there's two things you can do. The first thing you can do, and this is the very first thing I would recommend doing, is when you go into that campaign and into that ad set, let's pretend this was the ad set, and you go down to your ad set spending limits, you're going to want to set a budget minimum here. You ideally want to set this minimum to your average cost per acquisition. So if you acquire customers, we're going to go back to our Miro board, bring us back all the way over here. You're going to test. You want to test this at CPA average, okay? So if your cost per acquisition average is, say, $50, then this is what you're setting your ad set budget limit to. Now keep in mind, this here, let me use some different colors here. This here is first. The test is first, where you just add the country as a new audience and see what happens. The second thing is you add the ad set minimum in here. I want at least a 7-day gap between this and this. What people do too often is they see one day, oh my gosh, it didn't spend. Not how you need to do it. There needs to be at least a week gap to see if it's going to spend. Now, you should also be very, very aware of how much audience, how many people are in that country. So for example, I'll show you in this account again, where we're targeting lots of countries. You can see right off the bat, let me just go into the campaign level. Right off the bat, this campaign spent $115,000. 50% of it's in the United States. So when we launch something like all the way down here in New Zealand, that's only spent $995, we can't make the assumption that New Zealand's going to ever spend as much as the United States, because the population and our addressable audience is so much smaller, right? So much, 350 million people that we can target in the United States versus a significantly smaller portion in New Zealand. So when we're goaling, when we're properly setting up these tests, we need to be very patient and understanding that this might drive a very small percentage. Now, the next piece of this, and I mentioned there was a second approach to this, would be new campaign. So this would be like the third option here, or it would be like 2.5. We call it 2A. So 2A would be third campaign. So this is new campaign completely. And it's targeted just in the new country. So it's new campaign, new country, and we got to let that run for, again, minimum 7 to 14 days. This here is the most surefire way to test it, but it's also the most risky. My preferred situation is number 2. Number 2 really puts you in a situation where you're never going to overspend, and you are able to confidently test the geographic location. So I hope that helps. I try to keep this a little bit snappy for you guys here. There are so many different nuances to this one. But just generally speaking, just to summarize here, number 2, why I like it so much is because you're testing the geo, you're giving it 7 days, you're giving it a minimum if you need to. And by the way, very, very, very important here, and I hope everyone's listened to this point, this is winners only. You're only getting winning ad sets or winning ads into this. You don't need to test new ads into this. It's just your best of your best of your best. The only thing you might need to change is your copy or your slight iterations of your creative, like the text on your creative, if there's like a different verbiage that's used for your product. But generally, we want to get winners only into this setup.